Welcome to More Than. I'm your host, Kevin Carroll, powered by First Tech Federal Credit Union. Maybe you haven't seen the first 2 episodes. I want to refresh you, on why First Tech actually has the name. 1952, Tektronix employees actually started the credit union. I love the fact that they changed the name. They changed the name in 1986, but the whole premise was around the idea of think forward, the idea of technical innovation emphasized and reflected in the work. 1986, they changed the name to First Tech, and here we are today, still doing our thing, the Summer of Tech. We are going to feature all these stories around why tech matters here in the city of Portland and the Pacific Northwest. And today's guest, I gotta tell you, I'm actually wearing some glasses in honor of the name of their company, Free GEEK. You see that, right? These are my blurred shades. That's what I call them, black nerd shades here. Yes, these are from I Am Other, Pharrell's group, his nonprofit, but these are my blurred shades. And I am so happy to invite our guest, Juan Muro, right? And you are the executive director of Free GEEK. And Free GEEK is a brilliant company. And we're going to get into all the things that you all are doing, the work that you've been doing, how you've been impacting the community, but most importantly, I love how you're closing the digital divide. But before we get out in front of that, can you just share a little bit of your origin story, your backstory, and how you came to be involved in this?
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here representing Free GEEK. Well, my name is Juan Muro, and I am the executive director of Free GEEK. And I was born and raised in San Diego, California. So I'm loving the heat, first of all. But I was born and raised in the poor neighborhoods of Escondido, California, which is in San Diego County. And then when I was 14 years old, I entered the foster care system after my mom was deported. And so I received my first laptop in the 11th grade from a San Diego Chargers at the time had a Chargers Foundation. I was able to utilize that tool, right, to apply for school, find resources that helped me, get out of what I grew up. So a couple of friends and I, we moved to San Francisco. We went to school there. I started working. And then for whatever circumstance in life, I had to quit school to help with my mom, who was now living in Tijuana, Mexico. Or Mexico, before I get canceled.
Yeah, that would happen real fast. That was a good save on your part.
And so I started working to help with the bills and all that at Starbucks, and I was with them for about 10 years. But all along the way, I found mentors who really believed in my potential, and so I moved up and I started doing a lot of really good work for them in terms of management. So I was doing well after that, after a few years. When I moved to Portland about 4.5 years ago, I realized that I wanted something different. I felt like I needed to do something that was a little bit closer to home for me. And I found Free GEEK. And I thought, you know what, I can work at Free GEEK, do a little bit, help them out with a little bit of business, a little bit of management. I brought those skills to the nonprofit, to Free GEEK. But I fell in love with it because of my personal experience with the technology and how it impacted me. So that is how I ended up at Free GEEK. At Free GEEK, I found some folks that were really passionate about not just technology, but what happens when you mix sustainability with social good. And so for me, I'm like, wow, that happened to me. And so I thought, okay, let's use this platform to do some good. And so that is how I ended up in this seat as the executive director, understanding really my own personal experience and how technology helped me, how I could support the organization, build capacity to help more people, and then what it means to take technology and help folks advance. That's how I ended up here.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And so here's a funny. I'm gonna do some Jason Bourne, John Nash, Beautiful Mind stuff with you right now. I'm gonna pull all these little threads. So you mentioned the San Diego Chargers. My dear friend was a head athletic trainer there for decades.
Oh,
James Collins.
Okay.
He was there for decades. And so when you said that, I'm like, I wonder if you ever interacted with James, which would be brilliant. And your story and my story are very similar. My parents abandoned us. They were had drug problems, alcohol problems. My grandparents raised us, so I understand, having, the family dynamic really upend your life. But finding a way to be a fighter, right? And finding a way to bring a level of resilience and not allow your circumstances to dictate your destiny. So we've got that in common. And then your idea of what matters most. And so, hey, I'm going to table my journey to go and help my mom. But then you discovered you had an ability to actually relate to people and be a manager and raise your game in that, right? You come here. So if you think about all these things you've done, they were preparing you for this moment. They were absolutely preparing you. I just think it's really brilliant how, right, coincidences happen in our lives, but they're not coincidences at all, right? You're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you were meant to do. And I think everyone is benefiting from all of your origin story. And you mentioned this about sustainability and creating access, recycling. Can you give a little bit more detail around, the process of Free Geek and how they actually do get devices and electronics and technology in the hands of those who need it most?
Yes, I can. So Free Geek's reason for existing is to include everybody in our digital future. And so we do that.
Can you say that again? That's like a bar.
Yeah,
it is. Say that again.
Yeah, the Free Geek, his reason for existing is to include everybody in our digital future.
In our digital future.
Yeah, I mean,
inclusion, right? That's the whole thing.
Well, I mean, it's like you need water and you need food now to, just even be a part or be alive in a society. And technology is just like that now, and so anybody who doesn't have it automatically gets left behind, and they can't participate in the everyday life, right? That most of us have a privilege to. So yeah, that's our aspiration, right? I'm never going to be alive to see that happen. None of us will, but it's what wakes us up in the morning, right? We are taking on the fight against digital inequality, and one of the ways that we do that is through sustainability. And so when the community, our partners, and anybody who supports Free Geek donates their technology to us, our technicians refurbish that technology, we bring life back into it, and then we give it back to folks in the community who can't afford technology. We support them with digital literacy, so understanding just how to navigate a new device that they've never touched before. I remember the first time that I got my laptop, I'm like, what is this spaceship?
Right. Right?
And so I needed to understand how I could really leverage that tool to get me the resources that I need. So I'm like, all right, once I learn how to use it, I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm out the hood.
Because it opens up your world. Right. You see beyond your block.
Right, exactly.
Right? And so that's the one thing that technology does. It just opens up this aperture for you of like, what? The world is at your fingertips, literally.
Right. And so growing up the way that I did, and in the neighborhood that I did, that we didn't have like a view to that world, right? So I get into that piece around helping folks who you give a piece of technology to and supporting them along the way. You just don't give it to them and then you figure it out. That's what we do. So we give the folks a device that's been refurbished and has new life into it. And then you support them with one-on-one support, basic digital literacy, and then work across like the community around other resources that exist that can continue to support the individual, because the help doesn't stop there, right? And then other ways that helps us kind of do, include everybody in our digital future is working with partners in the city like Intel, for example, or First State Credit Union, who've always supported us with tech donations in abundance, right? So working with companies who have technology in their buildings that maybe they're gonna, every 2 years they cycle, right? Or they don't need. We know who can use that technology. Give it to us. We can test it. We can fix it. Exactly, it's new to them. So those have been incredible partnerships that enable the work that we do, right? So, but that's what I mean when I talk about what happens when you mix sustainability with social good, right? You reuse technology that would otherwise end up in landfill, and then you leverage it to support and uplift communities who've been left behind in our digital world for so long.
So what I've been finding in this summer of tech conversations, there's a lot of do-gooders in this city, right? Like there's social do-gooders, there's individuals that have a superpower around, helping others, but they do it in a clever way. I think this is so clever, the way you all have addressed this opportunity and this issue. And I know the fact that you all, talk about it from a social standpoint, the importance of these marginalized communities that can be overlooked, or the assumptions that people make. Like, here's your phone, go, right? Like you know what to do with it. It's like, I haven't had one, so I need the digital education and literacy, all those things that are really unlocks. Have there been any challenges that you all have faced? Have you noticed anything? Like, maybe the pandemic actually created a challenge for you all. Did you notice anything during the pandemic that really elevated a challenge?
We saw anywhere from 750 to 1,000% demand for free devices and support during the pandemic.
And 750 to 1,000%?
That's a lot in demand. Quick, the moment the folks started getting sent home to study or to work. And so the challenge is that then the community all of a sudden looks for a resource, right? And so then we're here, and so it's how do we pivot really quick to help as many people as possible, and then how do we ask for support from the city, from the community to help us build more capacity, right? Or to help us, close gaps where resources are being exhausted. And so it put a lot of work into the work that we were already doing, and this demand to do this work really quickly. And so that was one of the biggest challenges that we faced. The other challenge is that how do we do that work but also take care of our people? Because not only am I responsible to take care of the community through that people first lens, but I'm also responsible for the folks that work for us, the folks who are doing this work. And so that became a challenge, right? And so we fortunate enough to have a leadership team that are passionate enough about the work that we do, that when furloughs came, we knew exactly who we needed to prioritize within the organization to go take your furlough. We're going to figure this out. So it was kind of like all hands on deck. Let's take care of the people. Let's figure this out, and we did, and we did, and so. But those were some of the biggest challenges that we faced over the pandemic, right? So. But we're here, right?
Yes.
And we're growing, and we're moving in the direction that's going to continue to help a lot of people, not just the community that we're serving, but also how we are taking care of the folks that are working for us.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things is you're in the business of helping others, but we got to help ourselves first, right? And if we're not taking care of our own, how can we be of service to anyone else? That's the challenge many times that organizations forget. Right, that maybe we're in a customer service or a service capacity, and you're outwardly focused first, but your internal group they're dealing with stuff when they go home also, and so I think that sensibility and that empathy allowed you all to really navigate a really difficult time, because a lot of places didn't make it. Right. And I go back to how you were educated as a manager, the things that you took from that, how you adopted them, and now instituted them as an executive director. And when you're up against a real challenge, it demonstrates leadership or not.
Right.
And so well done on your part, right? Yeah. I mean, because I know that wasn't easy for you, and it was a big energy demand and challenging for you as well. One of the things that you talked about was the empathy for your staff and taking care of them, and even if you had to deal with some difficult things with them. But for leaders, that's a challenging time also. Did you create, or did you always have some rituals, some practices to help you with either meditation or just how you showed up as a leader?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, over the pandemic, there were hard decisions that had to be made. But I wasn't the only one driving, right?
Yes, because you weren't the executive director.
Because I wasn't the executive director, right? But Hillary, who's a really good friend of mine, now was the executive director right before I took over. And so when Hillary and I had talked a couple years ago, and we decided, hey, she told me directly, it's like, I really think that this is a great organization for you to actually take over one day. Is that something that you're interested in doing? And I said, you know what? Yeah, like I think this is for me. And so.
What year was this?
This was in 2020. So right at the beginning of the pandemic, in the middle of it all, I was like, yes, I can, but you got to clean this up first.
I love it.
And so good friend of mine, but we're both really passionate about just equity and restoring justice particularly in the workplace. And so we both recognized that the organization had potential to be a vehicle for opportunity for specifically folks who've been typically ignored or left behind, not just in technology in jobs, and also nonprofit jobs. And so we both said, we both agreed that I wanted to take this organization to the next level the next chapter of its life. So I still needed to understand the nonprofit world here in Portland, and also understand the actual organization itself, because it's very complex. It's almost like 6 organizations in one. And so I wanted to make sure that I was the best person and most prepared, really, to take it to where I needed to go. So we developed this development plan, and the goal was to make it something that we could just put into place or implement across the organization in the way that we do hiring, and the folks that we prioritize for promotions, how we support individuals within the organization to grow, because passion will only take you so far, right?
Yeah.
If there's no what's next for me?
Passion will only take you so far.
So that's what kept me going. And so I thought, you know what, I have an opportunity here to really take my resilience and understand its power and use that for, in service of my community, who I grew up, the folks that look like me, sound like me, and have never really been given an opportunity like I grew up, or my brothers and sisters, or the folks that grew up around me. And so I'm like, this can happen here. And that's what kept me going. So I knew, all right, I'm going to take this organization over one day. And I know that we're not just going to be doing digital equity, but we're going to be doing equity altogether. We're going how can I take this platform and grow it so that we can reach more folks who are looking for opportunities, who are looking for just a foot in the door. And we've done that. And we've done a lot of that work internally to make sure that the folks that we are hiring and that we're bringing in are folks that, one, can relate to the community that we're serving
and supporting.
That, two, are talented, but we're just looking for a way in. And then 3 is that folks that want to grow, want to learn, but just need a coach or a mentor that can get them there. And that's what we become for folks in our community. So, and that's the way, when I said earlier, taking care of our people, that was at the top of my head. I'm like, I know what I got to do with this place. And I know that I have to make it successful, because that's the way that I'm going to be able to reach people who one day were in a situation like I was.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I heard very loudly that you were saying was the opportunity to become the executive director got you out of bed every morning.
Right.
Got you inspired, gave you that want to, as my grandfather would say. He would say, you can't do anything with a broke want to, right?
Right.
You got to want to do something. And so that catalyzed your want to, and you had a reason for showing up. You had a thing, because I can see where we can take this. I can see how we can create not just digital access and equity, but equity overall. And I think that's really a loud message. And for you to embody that, I think is so important, and to navigate all that ambiguity, all that, increased need that you talked about, 750 to 1,000% more need, all these things that you were part of the team or now leading the team.
Right.
I think that's just so beautiful and commendable what you're doing. So with that in mind, and now that you are the executive director, what does the future hold? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal, the BHAG, as they like to say?
Yeah. I mean, I have a big vision for this organization. But primarily, for me, and selfishly, I'll say, maybe it's not selfish or not, but I've always been looking for justice for myself and how I grew up. And I can't go back to the past to, maybe change something or make different decisions, or hope that how I grew up or the people around me made different decisions. I can't do that. But what I can do is I can continue to use this platform to support other folks who need it most, right? So my vision for the organization is, one, is to grow it. Because if I can grow it, I can create more opportunities, not just for folks who've been left behind because of digital inequality, but for folks who left behind because maybe they had to quit school to take care of their mom, or maybe they had to quit college or whatever, or training that they were going through because they had to take a second job to take care of their 2 kids because now they're a single mom. Or maybe because you're just broke and no one ever told you about how you can actually apply for scholarships, whatever, to go to school. So you went to a community college, that didn't work out, and now you're working at, flipping burgers or whatever, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I want folks to understand that Free Geek is creating a space where you can have a shot at it, even if you didn't complete X, Y, and Z. So we've restructured our entire hiring practices. We're saying bye to requirements that actually make no sense. And if it's skills that we just have to close, we're going to invest in those things because we understand that there's a community out there that just needs a chance. And so that's another thing that I want to continue to grow with the organization. So move it from just we recycle stuff, it's a service we provide. No, the organization has potential to be a huge a platform really for folks who really of all backgrounds really can really where they can thrive. So that's where it's headed.
Yeah, but when you just said that, I thought, well, you could rework that tagline, including everyone in our future.
Yeah.
First one's free, bro.
Hey,
I gave you that one. I'm
like, it's mine. You already said it. I'm taking it.
That's what I'm talking about. So listen, I think the audacity, because if your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. That's my belief, right? It should be audacious. That is an audacious dream. It's so perfect. You're the person for that. You got to take good care of you, make sure you surround yourself with the right team.
Yeah.
And the future can be yours, right? And Free Geek's going to open up doors in ways that no one ever anticipated.
Right.
And one of the things that I think is important is when we start to think about the future and that idea and the hoped for goals, and it's incremental, right? It's I call it micro wins, little wins, right? It's chipping away at it, making those little wins stack up, right? And then you look in totality, you've won the day, right? You've found a way to get to that. And I think in order to envision that possibility, you have to think about your legacy.
Right.
So there's this beautiful little quote that I use from time to time: work for a cause, not for applause.
Yeah.
Live life to express, not to impress. Don't strive to get your presence noticed, just make your absence felt.
Yeah.
You're about a legacy. That's what you're doing. You're trying to create a legacy play, right? And it's not just confined to Portland. It reaches all the way back to the neighborhood that you grew up and all those who may have been left behind. You're repping all of that, and you're bringing forth all that energy, passion, purpose, and intention towards that. So it's commendable what you're doing. I'm all in with you. I always like to have like a little fun with my guests. So we just talked about the future of Free Geek. Well, there's an actual show on Netflix, and it's called The Future Of. And it looks at industry experts actually talk about, new emerging technology trends to imagine revolutionary possibilities, which is kind of like what Free Geek is, right? Revolutionary possibilities. And so they have a list of these shows that they look at the future of something, and it's really well done. And so I actually have seen most of these now. And so here are the different shows that they look at. And then I'm going to hand this to you, and you're going to pick two that you'd like to learn more about the future of. Dogs, dating, houseplants, gaming, space vacations, cheeseburgers, death, fashion, skyscrapers, sports, health, or headphones. So give that a little quick view there and pick two, and then you're going to share why those two jump out at you.
Wow, this is really hard.
I love it. That's good. That's what I'm supposed to
You play too much.
That's right.
Okay, so the first one is going to say space vacations.
Okay.
And the second one is going to be death.
Oh my gosh. This is kind of freaky. My last guest, both the same things. Yes, so tell me why, because I'm going to see maybe you two need to know each other.
Okay.
Yes. And she was with PDX Wit.
Oh, really?
Yes. Rihanna. Have you ever met Rihanna?
I don't think I met Rihanna.
Oh, we might have to get y'all to. She said that. Tell me why. So space vacations. Why?
Space vacations is because one of my friends actually works for a hotel company, and I hear a lot about they trying to create these space hotels. So, and I've always, as a kid, I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. Like I wanted, and then I realized that we were too broke for that.
But it's never too late.
It's not.
Because you're actually inspiring people that might end up doing that.
Exactly. So that's those are the two reasons why space vacation, but also because I want space vacation to be affordable to everybody else.
Facts.
Not just
to the exclusive billionaires that can go out there, right, and build their own rocket ship and go and do stuff.
Right.
And then why death?
Death because I know that it's inevitable, right? But how can we make people not be so scared of it? And so for me, I would like to understand maybe what's on the other side, so I can just come back and be like, that wasn't that bad. Actually, it's better.
So good, Juan. Well, listen, Juan, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
More than and sharing so many insightful information, inspiration, and just this mindset from Free Geek, but even you and your story and what you've overcome and what you intend to do with your journey and how you're going to inspire others to chase their dreams. And I just love the fact that, including everyone in our future. So it's not just the digital, and I love that. And so I appreciate you more than you could even realize. And we appreciate you all coming to join us. And can you just say to this camera, where can we learn a bit more about Free Geek? Where can people go and find out about you all? You can go direct to that camera right there and let them know.
So freegeek.org is where you can find out about our amazing organization, how you can contribute, and how you can get involved. But also you can find us at the corner of Southeast 10th and Southeast Mill in Southeast Portland.
Done and done.
Hey.
Done and done. Well, Juan, I appreciate you. You already know. And we appreciate all of you for tuning in to More Than Season 2, Episode 3, Free Geek. Be well, Godspeed, peace and play. We love you. First Tech, game on.